right, everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking about retro marijuana, computer operators, Vicks VapoRub, and ABC after-school specials.
Jeff, are you still sick? Or is it just you're spending so much time in post-production for this endeavor that you're just not sleeping, eating right? Because your voice, your deep, resonant DJ, lights out jazz voice still sounds just a little scratchy.
I do sound a little off. No, here's the thing. I didn't actually get sick. It would have been so awesome if I could have gotten sick and, just been really down for the count for a couple days and then felt better. What I have is something that just kind of lingers. It's been lingering for about a month and a half, and it just keeps me at about a quarter speed off. I'm about 25% off. And there's just kind of a little persistent cough. I could be describing a really, really serious issue. This might be one of those things where later they go, oh my God, did you hear that podcast where he was literally describing the beginning of that horrible thing? But no, I mean,
it was the second to last episode.
Yeah, that's right. And by the way, don't ever make the effing mistake of going to WebMD.
No,
I don't consider myself a hypochondriac, but dude, if you go to WebMD, there's one thing for sure. You have cancer. Every single thing on WebMD, you have cancer, right? Or it's some super rare illness. Oh my God. I have mesothelioma, right? Oh my God. I have Streptococcus neuromyces, the curse of the pharaoh. It's like WebMD is never good. So don't do it.
And you weren't even stationed at Camp Lejeune at any time. And yet you've got all of these symptoms. Yeah, that's right. The symptoms are bad and they're incurable.
Right.
And you have anywhere from, 6 months to 20 minutes left.
Well, and Chris, they totally cater to people like you and me, right? Because as you get older, these symptoms sound like they definitely apply, right? Are you getting a little bit tired? Yes, I'm a little bit tired. Naps during the day, fatigue, lack of focus. Yes, what is it? Oh my God, that is totally me. Forgetfulness. Oh my God, that's 5. That's 5 right there. Right. And then it's like some horrific disease, right? Other than just you're getting old. All right. Anyway.
Do you have a headache? Are you irritable? It's like, yes,
right.
I can't sleep. So of course, and then I get irritable and I get frustrated and I get a headache. But okay, well, I'm glad to see that's nothing that's, as long as you stay off of WebMD and the Google machine.
I have the miracle cure. You know that. Every night before I go to bed, I put a little Vicks on. I put little Vicks right below the nose there, just so I can breathe nice and clear. Sometimes a little bit on the chest, just it's almost like a security blanket, right? Because, when I was a kid, that was a big thing, right? To make me feel better. I think it's all psychosomatic, but man, it does make me feel better somehow.
Because everybody wants to go to bed with some warm, hot goo like stuck to their chest.
I'm sorry. Are we still talking about VapoRub?
I think it's Vapo, right? It's not Vapor. And that was like, oh yeah, that'll just put a little Vicks on it. They had like those, and they also had the vaporizers, right? What?
Wait, hold on a second. Am I total? I guess I'm a total idiot. Are you going to tell me right now? Is this one of those Mandela effect moments that it's not Vicks VapoRub, it's VapoRub?
I thought they kind of like put the words together, right?
Oh,
as far
okay.
As
is there an R in it, or there's no R anymore, or was there an R?
I think there's like a capital R, so it's like VapoRub. You know what I mean? It's like, I guess it's one word, but it's 2 words. Yes, it's
VapoRub, and we're supposed to imply the other R. Okay, I gotcha.
I guess,
but I don't know. If you had asked me right now to close my eyes and spell it out from the label, I would have said VaporRub. But you're saying it's Vapo and then the word rub. And you and I may be from different dimensions. This could be a Mandela effect, right? Where
it could be.
You remember it one way, I remember it the other way, and we've split.
Right, right. And it's like, do you really rub that? Because that stuff was thick. It was like putting Crisco on,
You
right? Like, how
don't.
much do you really want to rub? And it's like,
No.
maybe it helped if your mom did it, but it was just like, how am I supposed to? This is supposed to help me breathe, but
Yeah,
it's like I'm all uncomfortable, like gooey and wet, you know. But like most of the,
exactly.
most of right of the, I don't know what were the cures. They weren't home remedies, but they were remedies in the sense of the medicines, like the VapoRub
Yeah.
or the Triamenic, which was like the worst sort of cough syrup
Wait
ever.
a minute.
It's
Hold
like,
on. Wait, hold on. I'm so sorry. Triamenic. I know that word. As soon as you said it, it's exactly like Product 19 cereal from the
mm-hmm,
last episode. You just triggered something in the back of my brain that hasn't
right.
been triggered in a million years. What was Triamenic? What was that
It,
from?
it was like, I don't know. I'm guessing Triamenic, they probably put a couple of chemical words together.
What does it even mean? What's Triamenic? Is Triamenic part of the Vapor Rub commercial?
No,
Is
it was like
Vapor? No.
cough medicine. It was a separate,
Oh,
it was like orange or like maroon, some sort of, I'm picturing
Triamenic.
it,
Yeah.
Triamenic. And it was like a
Okay.
cough suppressant, cough medicine, tasted terrible. I think at some point in time, it had alcohol in it. I think it's alcoholics.
So they're just making up words like they did with. Do you remember that commercial, Chris, for garbage bags that were extra thick, and they were made with, get this, Linear D. Now made with Linear D, and Linear D was this imaginary chemical compound or alloy or whatever it was that somehow made these garbage bags indestructible. That's a pretty deep pull there, but
It's a
Linear
very
D,
deep hole.
and it also reminds me of the other fake thing they came up with, which was the Ricardo Montalban commercials, right? Where he would brag about a car having rich Cordovian leather.
I thought it was fine Corinthian leather.
Oh, Corinthian, Cordovian. What
Right.
the hell's Cordovian? What am I
I
getting
don't,
that from? I don't know.
right.
But
Right.
rich Corinthian leather. Thank you. Thank
Right.
you. And by the way, there is no Corinthian leather. It never
No.
existed. In fact, those seats were made out of, what a shock, rubber, plastic, synthetic material.
Vinyl.
There was no, I mean, kind of nice in a way, but there was no animal products of any kind. But they were able to say that with a straight face. Rich Corinthian leather. There's no such thing.
They
I guess we
counted
just,
on you not. They counted on you not knowing that,
yeah,
right? Because it sounds exotic. They sat around making shit up like that. It takes somebody. Somebody has to say that, right? Like, what is Corinthia? Where's Corinthia? Is that a country? Is it a city? You
I
know?
think that Corinthia was. I don't know, man. I feel really stupid right now. It sounds very Greek and Roman. It sounds like somebody
Mm-hmm.
once had or did or there was a battle in Corinthia or Corinth or something like that. We're
Well, I
gonna find
remember
out
the
later and feel really
Corinthians.
stupid. Yeah, the
I
Corinthians, of
remember
course, dude. The Corinthians.
Corinthians. I remember that again from CCD, which we mentioned a couple episodes back.
My brother, if he's listening to this, is going to kill me because he was a history teacher his entire life, and he loves especially Greek and Roman history. And I know that he's going to think I'm the biggest idiot for not knowing Corinthia or the country of Corinth. I don't know. Now I feel really dumb.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, man, Vicks VapoRub, that was a total cure-all back then. And I think it was mostly psychosomatic. But again, like I said, to this day, I use it, and I think it may or may not actually help. But it just makes me feel like, for at least 10 minutes, I can breathe really nice, and it makes me go to bed. That's all. Makes me sleep nice.
And if you've got your, like I said, everything, okay, the Triam again, which is really disgusting cough medicine, I remember.
Triamenic.
But then let's say you had some sort of injury or wound, right? And let's say you're riding your skateboard and you skinned your knee or something like that. And the
Okay.
good skin, where let's say you took off like, I don't know, 1.5 inches of skin.
That was 3 times a week. Yes, go ahead.
Right, right. And then not only that, but you maybe got like some dirt and gravel in the little scab, right? Which was like, so, you had to clean that thing off. And then I can remember almost getting chased around the house by, if it's one thing if you try to deal with that, put a Band-Aid on, it's another thing if a parent, specifically your mother, gets a hold of you and wants to clean it. And they put that, remember the spray they put on? The stuff that felt like it was burning the actual skin?
You're talking about Bactine? Or yeah.
Bactine. Bactine.
Ouch.
Which was just like, and Bactine, right? You're talking, again, what is that? Why is it called Bactine? Is that the active ingredient that will make you scream in agony when it's like sprayed on? that and that hurt. So that was the point. It's like, no, I don't want the, might as well just I'm guessing it had some sort of alcohol in it because it was just like cleaning something with rubbing alcohol with,
Yeah.
this is going to hurt. Oh, thanks for the warning. I'm already hurt. So what you're trying to tell me is you want to hurt me some more so I'll feel better. It's like a weird sort of codependent relationship already. Did Bactine really keep you from amputating my leg below the knee? Just a little soap and water wouldn't have been okay.
Something tells me that they knew that it hurt, obviously, right? The people that made Bactine surely tested it. And even if all you had was a tiny little paper cut, if you sprayed Bactine on there, you're at about a level 8 or 9 in terms of instant pain. And I can only imagine that having it hurt was the message to parents that it's, quote, working, right? Because they all came from an even tougher era than we did. They came from an era where people would get kicked in the head by horses and just lay down on the ground until you got better. And either you got up or you didn't, and that was medicine, right? So if it didn't hurt, if it didn't sting, if it didn't have a little bit of a kick, then it wasn't working, right? So I have to believe that a lot of the Bactine hype was just, it was all for show. What is it really doing? Did they really have to make it hurt like a motherfucker? No, probably not. The active ingredients, if there are any, probably would have worked without that. But they're like, you know what? Fuck this. Let's actually make this guy go through the mother effing roof. I want a kid screaming, not from the cut or the wound, just from the threat of his mother hovering over him with that goddamn spray bottle.
Again, the Vicks VapoRub, the same thing.
Yeah.
Probably a warm washcloth, or just getting a little steam, inhale a little steam to clear out your sinuses. Because I think the Vicks, didn't they sometimes put the Vicks VapoRub like right around maybe around your nose too? Which is just like, oh, this is great.
You're literally describing my nightly routine. I always put a little bit right underneath my nostrils. It just helps me to breathe pretty well, but only for about 30 seconds. But that's all it takes for me to go to sleep. But yeah, no, for sure. And I remember the Bactine sting. What I was thinking as a kid to get myself through that pain was that pain is all the germs dying. This is their last moment, right? And that's what I'm feeling is the agony of the bacteria. Oh, maybe that's what Bactine stands for, right? Bacteria, like there's something in the back. I don't know, dude. Oh, how about spraying stuff on your back when you were sunburned? Oh my God. Didn't we used to spray like some kind of a sunburn treatment on our sunburns? Am I wrong?
Right. And then the sunburn that you couldn't touch, right?
Yeah.
So let's definitely spray something that's going to tingle and, again, probably has the same properties as Bactine. And yeah, absolutely. It was like, no pain, no gain. I'm telling you, that was the idea. If it hurts, it must be doing you some good, right? And that's the only thing I think of.
Was it called? I think it was called Solarcaine.
Solarcaine. That was absolutely it. That was a great pull. Nice pull on that one because it's like, ooh, we're gonna get the solar note and so the cane, does it come from Novocaine? Who's
there you go.
In a room? Who's sitting in a room making all this shit up? I wanted that job. I could have come up with some cool stuff.
Solarcaine. Right? I like that. Yeah, you're right. It's solar for the sun, and then cane could be exactly what you're thinking. Right. Novocaine, numbs it. But of course it stings like a mother at first. And by the way, we just didn't understand, like we said before in a previous episode, how damaging the sun is, but I don't have any melanin at all in my skin. So my routine would be go to the sun, burn, and then just wait for it to peel. And that was it. I might have had a moment or two, maybe 30 minutes where it looked kind of tan, more of a dark red. And then, do you remember back in the day, right? We talked about this. Kids would just have huge sheets of skin peeling off of their bodies after going to the beach. Right? My God, what were we thinking? Well, we already talked about this. I know we put Crisco oil and all kinds of horrible things. Hawaiian tropic oil was really, I don't know that was really protecting you.
But yes, the sunburn with the peeling was almost a badge of honor when we look at it now going, yes, that's the precursor to sun cancer somewhere down the way, right? But I think it was just one of those things that, so spray something painful on it and you'll be fine. I got a sunburn once I was in 7th grade that was so bad I had to go to the ER because I had like a fever and my parents.
Oh my God.
And it was just like, I went to this pool at the Navy base with this neighbor and his mom let me get absolutely fried. And I remember my mom wanted to go down the street, I think, and actually fight her over it. And it peeled. It got hard. It peeled. It was like it bled the first stage when it peeled. That's how bad it was. They said it
Wow.
was like, oh, it's like a first degree burn or something like that. Oh, that's nice. Um,
Wow. Wow.
I was in seventh grade, summer of seventh grade. It was brutal, absolutely brutal. But I think I've been hypersensitive to sunburns ever since. But again, that was the thing. Like I said, those are just those things that happened. We got hurt. We moved on. Yes, we sprayed something. The thing that's funny is I'm sitting there. It's like when what I was also remembering too is like when you're, you know, like I'm teasing you about if you're being sick, and it was like as an adult when you have to be sick, you're sick, and you have to kind of get through it, right? Like, well, I've got work to do or whatever. Obviously, in the last few years, it's been a little, hey, you're sick, you have to stay home from work, or you do this or that, or you work remotely or whatever. But like I can remember being sick as a kid, which was like to me, and I don't know, I guess I'll ask if you were the same way. It's like most of my illnesses were frauds, right? Maybe you got actually sick once a year, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you did get that flu and you felt like crap. And then, yeah, you really didn't want to, but like the other times when you like didn't want to go to school or didn't want to take the math test or any test, and you managed to stay home from school, right? And depending on your situation, as far as like if you could, convince your mom, oh, I'm sick and I can't go to school, especially if you had two working parents and you got to stay home.
I must have been the biggest pussy of all time because weirdly, Chris, this is going to sound unbelievable. I don't think I ever faked being sick. And it should have occurred to me. Don't get me wrong. I was no angel. It's not that it was somehow beneath me morally, but it just somehow never occurred to me when things were kind of tough at school or I wanted to avoid something to pretend I was sick. I don't know why I never did it. Now, sometimes I would lie about how well I felt. Mom, I think I'm good enough to watch TV. I think I'm on the mend. I would lie about that a little bit, but there was a weird Twilight Zone time frame, right? Where you're watching shows that are not for kids, right? Because this is the daytime during the week and all kids are supposed to be in school. So there was a weird programming that was on during that time frame that we would all get exposed to, right? Obviously there was horrible General Hospital and Guiding Light and The Days of Our Lives and all those things where even as a kid, as bored as I was, Chris, could you watch those for more than 10 seconds without changing the channel?
No. And those are all three extremely deep pulls as far as soap operas go.
Yeah.
And I think, and although I'm still trying to process that you never faked being sick.
I know, right?
To stay home.
How did it not occur to me?
I mean, although, like I said, invariably, sometimes again, like I said, oh crap, now I can't go to baseball practice because I told my parents I was sick, or you found out you missed something, like maybe there was a fight, or better yet, there was a girl fight the day before it, and damn it, you missed it because you were home being quote unquote sick. But I think that's astounding to me that you just didn't, that never really, and you didn't have, I mean, I knew, it's not like you had, not like your dad, I don't know what your dad wasn't a doctor, right? It's not like you had one of those ones that was easily
No.
disproving, disprovable, if that's a word, like that, random people would have that. But again, like you're right, you're watching soap operas or game shows or the really weird talk shows that you never would have seen ever because like Dinah Shore or Mike Douglas and things like that because they were on at these odd times. The exercise shows, actual shows like Jack LaLanne, and where you would watch this again. I mean, we talked about Jack. Let's do some deep knee bends, right, or something like that. It's like okay, and the idea being you're supposed to follow along, right? But I think even more disturbing was they knew whatever the demographic, right, the people that were home, right. Mm-hmm. So the commercials, there were no commercials for for Hot Wheels or anything like that or anything cool, Frisbees, slip and slides. There were commercials for first of all, like what the hell is what is a pad for a maxi pad, and what's a mini pad, right? Is the variable the feminine products, right?
Right,
There were the
right. That's right.
commercials for things like that or other medications, again for the senior citizens that were there, like Doan's pills or Ex-Lax. Like
Yeah,
these people
that's
are having
right.
some problems here. They can't go to the bathroom. That's not me.
That's
And
right.
then the other audience, if they weren't old or if they weren't a housewife that needed to see something about Hamburger Helper and that little weird hand, like was like a cooking, like an oven mitt that
Oh,
had like
yeah,
three
the
fingers or
claymation
something.
hand.
Right, but didn't even have the right number of fingers. Um,
Well, it's a cartoon, right? So cartoons always have to have four
True,
fingers, right? They can't have
something like
five.
that.
Yeah, right.
Right. But then like the commercial for like the Barbizon School of Modeling or a truck driving school,
Yeah.
right? The truck
Truck
driving school,
driving. Yeah.
or no, my favorite was the school was like the bartending school, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're telling me it's like I see like every adult I know make drinks at some point in time. Either my dad
Right.
every night after work, or it was at the holidays, or bust out the blender or make a gin and tonic or a martini. It's like you're trying to tell me there's a school for that, or I can do that for a living. And I remember this commercial where there's this guy, and he's like a young hip guy, and he's like talks directly to the cameras. He's got like his cocktail shaker, and he's making his drinks and saying how great his life is. And then there's like a waitress comes by, and she winks at the camera, and he's like, and there's great benefits too, which is like, oh my God. He's like, the benefits are that you're around a bunch of drunk people, maybe even drunk waitresses, whatever. But it's like, there's a school for bartending. And maybe
Yeah.
that's where I'm headed if I don't get back to class. So maybe I should go back to school tomorrow. Otherwise, I'm going to be either in school for truck driving or for bartending or something like that. It was like, it's a whole other world out there.
Bartending is usually the thing that happens to you when all other plans have failed miserably, right? When your life didn't work out the way you thought, that's when you go to bartending. And to think that you needed instructions on how to make drinks, it's like, dude, just follow the effing recipe. Most bartenders, don't they just figure it out on their own, or just get trained for about a day from someone that's already bartending? I don't know. Maybe I'm making it too easy, but
Yeah, I would
that is hilarious
think,
to me
yeah.
that you'd have to go to a like almost like a trade school for bartending.
Yeah, and then you'd go apply down at Moe's Tavern or the Navajo Inn to say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm freshly certified. I'm just out of bartending school, and please hire me." So, but yeah, but
Yeah,
there was a lot of interesting schools, right, that we didn't
let's
really know about it.
let's think that through for a second. That implies that you had to go to a trade school to learn bartending, just like any trade school, right? Just to get certified to work on diesel engines or to be an arc welder or anything else, a machinist. Bartender was among them, which means that somewhere in some shitty Holiday Inn, there is a guy who's the manager of that location, and he's looking through resumes, and he wants to make sure that they don't hire any bartenders that don't have quote unquote professional training and an accredited, bartending school somewhere listed at the bottom of their resume. A bartender. That's the greatest thing ever.
It is.
We're very discerning here at the Lamplighter. We only want the best of the best.
If you think about it, it's like, I guess I would want someone driving an 18-wheeler to actually know how to drive that 18-wheeler, right?
No, that makes sense. You have to learn how to drive one. Yeah.
But again, there were the other schools. There was, like I said, like same thing, modeling schools and things like
what
that.
was
But
it,
I think
Chris? What was the name of the modeling school? The
the
Barbizon
Barbizon
School of Modeling,
School of
which
Modeling.
obviously Barbizon had to be a play on Barbie, right? Barbie must have been the root word, right? Wouldn't you think? The Barbizon, or is somebody really
I
named
think so.
Barbizon? Do you think that was that person's last name? The
That's a good
Barbizon
question.
School of Modeling.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Again, I guess you train to be a model. Sure. There's all kinds of reality shows now that would make us believe there's a lot of training that goes into it.
But wait, wouldn't they walk? Yeah, the whole thing is they could walk. They had to balance like a dictionary on their head or something like that. That was like, I remember that visual.
I think you're thinking of episodes of the Brady Bunch and stuff where we all believed that, to have perfect posture and to be a real lady.
Right.
With the right, the right walk and the right look and the right posture, you always had to put the books on your head and try not to have them fall off your head.
Right.
Yeah. But
Something like that. Okay.
I think my favorite in terms of trade schools back in the kind of mid to late 70s was in our area, Chris, the Coleman College. Coleman College was for computer people, right? And that was back when computers, home computers especially, were brand new.
Right.
And get this, Coleman College, right? Here's the ad. You could become a computer programmer, operator, or technician. I want you to think about that for 1 second. I can understand a programmer. That is definitely a skill back then. You're programming, you're writing code. Even today, that makes sense. A computer operator, an operator of computers. What is that? How does that even work? Are people that fucking dumbfounded by a computer back then that you need someone to come in and operate it? How do you turn it on? What is this thing in front of us? It has keys. It looks like a typewriter. What does it mean? What does it do? How does it all connect? We're going to have to call in an operator, right? Maybe we'll even have to bring one in full time. I don't know.
Or you would call them up and the computer operator would do his thing unless it wasn't working. And then they had to call the technician.
And by the way, a computer technician, sure. I mean, but back then computers were so shitty. Wasn't a computer technician basically a guy that unplugged the computer and plugged a new one in? There's no fucking way you're going to fix that computer. Are you telling me that those guys were going to rip apart the computer and start unsoldering things and start putting new motherboards in? Those things were piles of shit that barely worked to begin with. All right. They were barely better than a calculator. And no way, there's no way that technician was going to get in there and fine tune it. They just went in there, fucked around for 25 minutes to an hour, and then brought in a new computer and plugged it into the wall. There you go. It's fixed.
It was like sending in a disposable lighter for repairs.
Exactly. Thank you.
Let's just try a new one. And because this one, you got the little flat button and the little wheel to light the spark. And we can't fix that. But you're right. But Coleman College, no, they were out there with that, with ITT Tech, I think was another one.
Well, now I got to tell you though, to its credit, whatever my buddy was, a programmer or an operator or a technician, I did have a friend that you and I went to school with, a guy named Tim, and he did graduate from Coleman College. And I kind of gave him shit about it a couple times. And guess what? He actually made a shit ton of money. Was way more successful than me at a much earlier age. He's probably retired right now. So maybe I'm the effing idiot, right? Because maybe that's the route that I should have taken. I don't know. But, maybe he found his fame and fortune operating computers. For all I know, he's operating computers right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to go backwards for just 1 second here. We were obviously talking about what it was like watching TV during the day, during the week, as a kid when you were either sick or pretending to be sick. But what about the programming that was geared towards kids, right? When you would actually come home from school? This would be right around, what time would you say? 3 o'clock? 2:30 or something?
Maybe a little bit later, because maybe even like, depending on, Eastern Mountain times, whatever freaking time zone you're in, at least 3 o'clock, because it definitely had to be 3:30, right after school. Right.
Yes, after school, and then they had the after school special, right? And
yes.
It wasn't every day, obviously, but I would say, on a Thursday or a Friday or something.
I want to say it was like once a month. I think it was like appointment viewing. It was like, maybe it was like the first Wednesday of the month or something.
Appointment viewing.
After school special.
And it was the ABC, right? ABC, after school special. And then who was the kid, Chris? Sorry, who was the kid that was in so many of them? He was the same kid from like James at 15.
Oh, Lance Kerwin.
Lance Kerwin. Oh, nice. Yeah, he was like the king of after school specials. At least that's what I recall.
Right.
And then who else would be in those? Would Christy McNichol be in an after school special?
All of those ones. Oh, I definitely remember one with Scott Baio, who unfortunately is still around. Yep. Right. And made it up, helped ruin Happy Days toward the end and everything else.
He did for sure.
I swear to God, I think that it was called Stoned.
Stoned.
They all had their own. They all had their own episodes.
Yeah.
It was like a 1 hour. And see, the problem with the after school special was that they were like secretly educational. right? You thought like,
Right.
hey, it's not like there was an adventure. Like I said, there was not like one that was like nobody was fighting crime or solving a mystery or doing anything that was, fun. And you'd be like, oh yeah,
Right.
I want to watch this. It's like Scott Baio was stoned, right? And he was like a nerd who fell in with the wrong crowd
That's
and
right.
like,
That's right.
smoked a joint, and all of a sudden he's like, he's just been like, he's throwing the attitude around, and he's like, his hairstyle has changed, and he's like, he's on the path to ruining his life, but he had
Right.
to get near the bottom. I guess he had to hit bottom before he could go back up,
Yeah. And
right?
back then, you guys, hitting bottom was smoking a couple joints. That
Right.
meant that your life was ruined. You were going to go schizophrenic. Your entire life was going to fall apart after you smoked a couple joints, right? This was basically a pseudo extension of reefer madness, right? The total smear campaign against marijuana, so that William Randolph Hearst could protect his pulping empire against hemp. But whatever, man. That's conspiracy, Jeff. Let's not go there right now. But I totally remember what you're saying, Chris, because Scott Baio, he started out as this nerdy kid. That's right. And I even remember, God, why is this in my head? I remember one of the jokes that he told a girl in the episode, and it died, and it was flat, and she didn't laugh, and she thought it was the stupidest thing ever. And the joke was, right, he walks up to a girl and says, what do you put on a sick pig? And she's like, I'm sorry, what? Yeah, what do you put on a sick pig? Do you know the answer to this? It's a total dad joke.
It's like ointment or something like
Ointment.
that.
Exactly. And she just looks at him like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it is so awkward. And I got to give him credit. It was a very well done scene where you couldn't feel more embarrassed for him. Then he takes a couple puffs of pot. Now all of a sudden he's in with the cool kids, right? But what happens, right? You smoke too much pot. He almost murders his brother by accident
Something like
because he
that.
smoked. His brother was a swimmer, and Scott Baio is rowing a boat next to him as he's doing laps in a lake. And of course,
Does he hit him with the oar or something?
He hits
like
him
that?
with the oar in the head and doesn't realize it because he's stoned, and his brother almost drowns. Now, Chris, do you see the dangers of pot? His brother almost died after 2 hits of a joint.
That was some really good shit, I guess, if he got that low. I mean, I guess he couldn't put ointment on his brother since he wasn't a pig, but
VapoRub. That's right.
That's exactly a little Triamenic.
Little Triamenic or some Bactine or some Solarcaine. Exactly. What else though? What were some of the other after school specials that we saw back then? Name another one.
Well, they were all just like I said, they were all just sort of little mini morality plays. And right around that time, 5th, 6th grade, there was an episode called My Mom's Having a Baby. And I'll have to look it up. I bet you it's on YouTube or something. And my parents, I don't know about you, or my dad, whoever's job it was supposed to be, I never had any kind of talk about that sex talk. Okay. It was just like, I'm still waiting. I've never had it.
Right. Yeah.
But my mom made me watch this episode. It was called My Mom's Having a Baby. There was a kid who was like our age, like 10 or 11 years old, and his mom was pregnant, and he had his 2 little friends, and they were, what I also remember too, that was very diverse. It was like a black kid and a blonde girl. So maybe it was like the Mod Squad before they became adults or something like that. It was Pete, Link, and Julie. I don't remember their names. But anyway,
wow. Nice.
But essentially, they kind of got to go on this journey, and she like hooks him up with the pediatrician, who I think was a real live, like a real life, like TV pediatrician who'd been on the Today Show or something like that. And he sort of took them through the journey of what happens when a mommy and daddy want to make a baby. And it was like part animation and part like the kids are learning, and they're like, wow. And they're like learning about how their bodies change. And at the end, they actually show, for 4:00 on a Wednesday TV thing, they actually had like video of a live birth, and you couldn't really see anything. It was more just like, well, here's like, what's going on in the room, and you kind of see, there's a screens up, and it's obviously it's a clinical setting and whatnot.
Right.
But they took you through the steps about everything that happens. And my mom made me watch and kept coming back to make sure I hadn't changed the channel. So then she could wipe her hands. It's like, okay, done. It's like I was semi freaked out. not because of what I had learned, but because of what I saw, right? But that was how she could just kind of say. And then the next year, which we had sex education, which I think, if you remember, was also tied into, and that's where you talk about the pot stuff. Like, remember, there was like a drug education component, and
That's
that's
right.
exactly, they didn't show us like reefer madness, but yes, they showed us some sort of educational version of that where it was like supposed to be the point of view. It was like Scott Baio's point of view when he took a couple hits off a joint, and
Right.
everything was all like all blurry and like psychedelic and in slow motion. And I remember very specifically because there were already people at that age who had already smoked pot, just laughing because it was like, this is not what it's like.
First of all, Chris, yeah, let's talk about pot back in the 70s. You didn't have to smoke a lot of it to know it was the shittiest pot that ever existed. It was so weak. It was such weak sauce that it was ridiculous. And, um, by today's standards, they wouldn't even sell it as a loss leader, to introduce people who are lightweights to pot. It was the shit of the shit. And back then we were, if you wanted to get high, I guess you would smoke some pretty dumb stuff, right? Like the stems or something, or the seeds or
The
whatever,
twigs.
just, yeah, anything, and just get a splitting headache. But even pot at its best was terrible, terrible pot. That's for sure, man. So
Well,
hilarious to me that we were all supposed to believe that smoking a little bit of pot was going to just blow your mind and be the equivalent of an LSD trip. That is absolutely hilarious.
right, because that's where all those PSAs then came from, right? About this is your brain and this is your brain on drug. It's the gateway drug, which is like smoke a little bit of pot, like Scott Baio almost killed his brother with it, in a rowboat, or all these terrible, terrible things are going to happen to you. And meanwhile, people are trying, smoking essentially, again, leaves and gravel, going, yeah, I don't really see it here. It's like, okay.
This reminds me, Chris, of a hilarious story of the 80s, the early 80s, when you and I were in high school, and they had one of those drug programs where a person who was in prison or is currently in prison but wasn't a violent offender, they were allowed with a handler, right, to come to your
Mhm.
class and try to scare you about drugs,
Scare
right?
you straight.
Yeah,
Right,
it was a scared straight program, right? But this wasn't
right.
somebody that was trying to scare you about going into. They were just trying to scare you off from doing drugs, right? So this guy comes in and he has his handler and he's talking about drugs. And it seems to be kind of going in a pretty normal fashion for about 5 minutes where, drugs are bad, don't do drugs, they ruined my life. Then this guy starts saying to the class, and the thing about pot is it's so easy to get hooked on it, and it's so easy to get addicted, mostly to the money that you can make from it. It is incredibly lucrative. If you want to talk about making some fast money, this is what you want to do. Because, ladies and gentlemen of this classroom, and this is exactly what he said, dope sells itself. Do you hear me? Dope sells itself. And he said it like 15 times in a row. And the handler, literally, if he could have taken a giant cane and wrapped it around the guy and yanked him off stage, he's like, okay, ladies and gentlemen, okay, kids, well, that's enough about that. We hope you learned something here today. We're going to go now. Dope sells itself. And I'm telling you, you and I both know, I think he really did inspire some of our classmates that day, because we graduated in a class that actually had a 21 Jump Street undercover police officer posing as a teenager at our school in our senior year. And a whole bunch of our friends got busted at the end of the year. And we got to watch the live news footage as they were collected from their classrooms and zip tied and hauled off to whatever the holding tank was for extremely stoned, low risk offenders who smoked a couple of puffs off of some, joints, right?
Well,
But again,
I
I think he did his job that day, Chris. I think he inspired some kids. And by the way, I just have to add to my list. You remember my list of people, Chris, that for whatever reason I just don't like them. These are celebrities that for whatever reason I just can't stand, right? And the list is ever growing. We talked about Ryan Seacrest. I never explained my irrational hatred of Howie Long, football Howie Long.
Right.
Just no sense of humor, just always comes off as kind of a douche. And then the list goes on, right? Poor Adam Levine from Maroon 5. What did he ever do to anybody? Well, I just think he's the worst, right? And the list just continues with other people as well. But one of them, besides Sammy Hagar, who, again, I get it. Huge fans everywhere. Everyone loves Sammy Hagar. Why don't I? Sit down with me for about 2 hours and I'll explain my hatred of Sammy Hagar. But Scott Baio is on that list as well. I just had to say it out loud. Just one of those guys that I thought was kind of fun to watch on TV when I was a kid. And he's just one of those dudes that the more you listen to his actual opinions as a human being, and the more you just kind of see his behavior, he just went from like, oh, okay, it's the Chachi kid, to holy shit, what is wrong with this guy? So Scott Baio is also on that list. And by the way, Scott Baio's never done anything to me. None of these people ever have. None of them really deserve my wrath. But yes, he is also on the Jeff Thill do not touch list.
I think we need to have an entire episode based on that. I think
that's right. Yeah,
I think there'd be a lot of good content. I don't know about you. I'm a little bit exhausted.
I hear you, man. We're definitely old. But hey, another great episode. Had a lot of fun. You know what that means. Until next time.
Until next time.